Welcome into the first episode of One Royal Way, Kansas City Sports Network podcast, brought to you by Kansas City Strength and Conditioning. We can't thank them enough for helping us get Royals content to you on KCSN. We are here at KCSC home field Olathe, and I'm joined today by a member of the Kansas City Royals who has trained here at KCSC this offseason, reliever Scott Barlow. Thank you so much for joining us, man. The first episode. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so how did you get teed up here at this place to be able to train for your offseason?
Yeah, so I did a little trip down to Cressy Sports Performance in Florida and kind of got like a training program put together with them. And that's where I kind of met Matt Hinckley for the first time, who was a partner here. And then when I came back to Kansas City, I wanted to continue, that training regime. And it was kind of hard doing it at like a local gym. Just because you didn't have like a trainer to make sure you're doing the exercises correctly. And then I reached out to Matt Hinckley, and he hooked me up with John here at Kansas City's Strength and Conditioning. And as soon as I came here, the facilities were awesome. They helped me with the program that I got from Cressy and kind of showed me the ropes on some exercises that I didn't understand, and just loved it ever since.
How have they been able to help you improve this offseason? What have you been working on to get better for the 2022 season? Come on, for a really good year in 2021.
Yeah. So I thought, after that year, my base strength was pretty good. That was kind of what I worked on previous years. And then this year, sports science coming out more with, the mobility factor and, making sure you're moving effectively through the movements and everything. And I think, combining that with, the new program that I've been working with has helped that out a lot, making sure, that I'm able to move through, my throwing motion effectively and efficiently, all while, being able to stay healthy throughout the whole season.
Yeah, so obviously the lockout has thrown a wrench into things, and I don't want to spend too much time on that. I'd rather look forward to the baseball we are going to have at some point in 2022. But how has the lockout in any way affected like your preparation for the season? Because you should be in Phoenix right now, getting ready, or in a surprise, getting ready for the season. So where do you think you're at in your build up to get ready for the season?
Yeah, that was kind of a factor going into the offseason, that, the lockout might happen, and, sure enough it did. But, I don't think too much about it, the timing thing. But, having experience with, that 60 game season with the COVID lockout kind of prepared us for this almost. You kind of have to look towards the future a little bit more now because, you don't know when we're going to have to be reported back. But, I kind of just kept it the same. I'm right where I need to be at now, just in case, if the, phone rings tonight, hey, be out in Arizona tomorrow, I'll be fine. But, now knowing like, okay, there might be some pushback and whatever, it's kind of almost stay on the same track you would be in spring. Obviously, it's hard to find hitters, but with here, they have hitters. You can have live, I could talk with Eli anytime and you say, hey, like, I need to throw a bullpen tomorrow or live tomorrow, no problem at all. So I think having the resource here is going to be a lot more beneficial. That way, I'm on track and not feeling like I'm behind or anything. Just in case, if we get a call tonight, hey, be ready tomorrow or anything like that.
Yeah, and obviously I know you would in a drop of a hat be ready to go down a surprise and get ready for this season. Looking back to 2021, you have a heavy workload. You threw 71 games. You threw the most in the 2022 season. And you talked about building up your strength and being able to do that. I'm sure that plays a factor because you are kind of the Swiss Army knife in that bullpen. Hey, I need 2 outs in the 7th, or whenever Matheny calls you, you're ready to go, whether 7th, 8th, 9th, whatever it is. How does that change your preparation during the season? Because it's not like you're like a Mariano Rivera or something like that, where it's 9th inning and that's, when you're going to go, but any given night it could change.
Yeah. Because I've had so many repetitions of that situation alone, just having that alone has, helped me a long way. Being able to, be prepared throughout the game, whether it be, in the 5th inning or the 9th or whatever it may be. I think, just being able to have a routine of somewhat, at least for the first like 5 innings, because if before that, they'll have a long reliever or something like that to kind of eat up innings. But having a routine, making sure that you're getting your stuff done, before the game, throwing wise, making sure you're not doing too much, and feeling comfortable when you get out there. That's half the battle, is making sure you're ready to go for that game. that you feel healthy, that you feel loose and relaxed and stretched out, and just kind of try to maintain that through 9 innings whenever the phone may ring.
Is that something you take pride in being a guy that that Mike Matheny can call on at any time to go in and put out a fire or go and get 3 outs to end a game?
Yeah, I find great pride in that. Being able to be used at whenever point in time in the game. That's every time he came up to me, he said, "Hey, you ready to go today?" Just checking. If we threw too many pitches, he'll kind of walk around and ask how we're doing, and if we're down that day or whatever. But I'm like, hey, like I love pitching. It's a hobby of mine. I love learning about it. So anytime I'm in the game, no matter what time of the game it is, I'm happy just to be out there playing.
So looking into 2022, kind of coming back to present day, what's the vibe been with your teammates as you guys have communicated throughout the offseason? Obviously, with a little bit of unknown, but
Yeah.
knowing what's coming forward in 22 with some of these young guys like Bobby Witt Jr., Nick Prado, MJ Melendez, all the pitchers that debuted last year, and there's more to come. You guys know that championship window is beginning to open a little bit,
Oh,
and maybe not this year, but moving forward, like we can see some steps in the right direction coming forward this year.
oh, absolutely. It's always fun. Whenever we get to spring, seeing the guys and everything, and it seems like there was never an off season, but our team dynamic, I think, has really developed, the past couple years. Especially with the young guys, and um, you know, kind of how everything's situated, and I think we're in a really good spot. I'm super excited for this upcoming season and season's future, and especially with the young guys, Bobby Witt for example. Every time we had a guy come up from AAA, we'd always ask how he's doing and everything, and he's like, "Oh, what do you got on Bobby? Like, what has he done?" He's like, "Man, like every time there's a guy, he's like, man, that kid's like the real deal." And so we're really pumped, to see him. And then Prado, I've heard awesome things about him, and just super pumped to see, you know, to see what the Royals are doing, the farm system, the guys that they're developing down there. It's pretty impressive.
What did you see from some of the young pitchers that came up this year? Daniel Lynch, Jackson Kowar made their major league debut. Singer and Bubich had time as well, but that's a huge part of the rotation moving forward. And there's guys like John Bolin, Alec Marsh, and others that are coming soon. What do you see from those guys and how they're going to be able to solidify a pitching staff that really needs to be solidified here moving forward?
Yeah, every single one of those guys has unbelievable stuff, like top tier stuff. And every time I'm watching them throw, I'm like, man, like I wish I had that. It's always tough, your first season. I struggled for sure my first season. You never really feel like you fit in quite yet, but I feel like with our team dynamic, I mean, everybody feels like such a tight knit group that's not so much the biggest issue. But the competition part, making sure throwing first pitch strikes, executing on two strike counts, and that's just something that you develop over time, and kind of sense and feel more comfortable with. Every outing, you can always get something out of it. You never want to like practice during a game, um, but it's something that you can always take away to improve. And those guys are definitely on the right track.
Absolutely. So I'm a huge nerd, and I was looking at your pitch usage from last season and the last couple of seasons. You're throwing your slider more than your fastball at times, and last year was actually the highest that it's been. Your slider usage. How do you become comfortable throwing what's considered a secondary pitch as essentially your primary? What kind of goes into that, and kind of retraining your brain to think, okay, I can go to my slider and kind of pitch backwards to guys rather than needing to just rely on a fastball.
Yeah. I think coming up through the minor leagues, it's very important, to be able to, locate your fastball, and, be able to be, that is your primary. And, I take, pride in, my fastball location. And, that was kind of my next big thing was, okay, secondary pitch, like, whether if you're, a starter or reliever, like you'll need a secondary pitch, and feel very comfortable with it. And, that's where, the slider came in. And, you know, practicing that, making sure not only can I get the right shape, but can I put it where I want. And that's something that I've been working on the past few years, is making sure that I'm able to do a two strike slider versus an 0 slider, whether it's backdoor, glove side. Always working on that. That way, you're not predictable with the fastball. And I think over time, it'll kind of like wax and wane on which one you're going to use more, which one you feel more comfortable with. But I've always thought it was important to me to have a good secondary pitch that you can locate and have the movement that you want.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Salvador Perez. Obviously, he had an incredible offensive season, but he's been the stalwart behind the plate for so long, and you've thrown to him for your whole career in the big leagues. What has he been able to teach you, and what kind of dynamic do you guys have that's kind of helped you progress?
Yeah. Offensively, like every time he's coming up to bat, we're always like
It's incredible.
locked
It,
in.
it was incredible last
Because I
year.
mean, even the pitches that he would get, we would just be in awe that he would get the barrel to, like up and away. It seemed like, okay, that's a for sure ball out of the hand, and he would just crank it oppo like 450, no problem, and it was just super impressive to watch. But having him behind the dish is just it's the most comfortable feeling because you never feel like you're alone out there. He's in the fight with you. He's giving you the confidence, like, hey, like I think this is like the right pitch to do, and like you could see it through his his uh, uh, body language, and that alone gives you confidence because sometimes you'll come kind of be on the fence of like, okay, I want to throw this pitch, but this pitch is also an option, and then he'll kind of go with that first pitch to kind of reassure you, like, okay, we're on the same page, and that takes time for sure. Being able to get that communication with your catcher and having that line of communication open to tell him, like, oh, okay, this is the pitch that I've been feeling really comfortable with, and he's great listener, and it gives you feedback, like, hey, like, if this hitter's struggling with a certain pitch, he probably won't go off of it, like he'll tell you, like, hey, this is the right pitch, and I always feel comfortable with that, and I think that's what he's taught me the most is like the trust factor in your team, whether it be Salvi or the guys behind you, like I have full trust in every single one of those guys behind me. Whether and then you don't have to feel there's less pressure. It's like, okay,
Right.
now I don't have to try to make them always swing and miss. Like you can be like, okay, I can have this guy hit the ball and be like, okay, I'm gonna have the fastest outfield ever,
Right.
run it down, or Nicky Lopez with the incredible not only offensive but defensive season that he always has, and just any one of those guys out there, you just feel super comfortable with.
A lot of times last year, even when there was some losing streaks and some struggles, it always felt like there was a few guys, namely Salvi, that displayed the game with such joy. And they're just happy to be out there. And we were just watching some kids over here right as we started this interview. They're out there running around, playing catch, having a great time. I don't know how old they were, but that we right before we got on here, I said, that's when baseball is at its best because they're playing with that joy. How do you still have that? You've been playing for so long, and now it's a job where you're making money to play and play paid handsomely to do so. How do you still keep it fun and continue to have that joy, because it's a long season, it's a grind, you can't take it too seriously for that long?
Yeah. Yeah, especially at this level. I mean, I know when I first got up, you're very concerned about yourself and, wanting to stay in the big leagues and, wanting to be successful. And, that's obviously a key factor in, your development as a player. But I think kind of once you get over that hurdle, it's okay. Like I'm bigger than, just me. Like this is a team effort. And it may be, sometimes it doesn't feel like that just because you're, a pitcher and I'm the one with the ball and having to do it's very like a lonesome feeling. But once you get past that and look at it as a team effort, I think then you can kind of you know have that good atmosphere of fun and have a good time, and then you really start cheering for your teammates. And I think that's when things start to get fun. Kind of when you take your focus off yourself, like of course you're gonna have to train and take care of your own business, but when the game's on, like you're cheering for your team and hoping that you can do something to help your team. um, and I think that was a big an eye opener, for me at least, because when you have your failures, you have your team to look forward to you and help pick you up, or then you can get an opportunity if if a guy has a tough night, you can have that opportunity to lift a guy up, and that's when the team chemistry kind of builds the game to make it fun.
Yeah. So, who was the kid when you were growing up learning to love the game of baseball? Is there a certain player that you kind of gravitated towards that helped you fall in love with the game, or a certain team, or something like that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Connecticut, and it's pretty split between Yankees and Red Sox fans. And
Right.
I grew up a New York fan, and so we usually had their channel on my TV, so that was the pretty much the only game I got to watch. But um, yeah, I liked just I would say the Yankee Red Sox rivalry had me fall in love with the game.
Oh yeah.
Just because you could see the passion on both sides of the team, and being able to watch that as a kid, especially in that era, earlier 2000s,
Hmm.
was really kind of spoiled me a little bit, and with that that type of atmosphere. And I think those intense games really had me fall in love. And watching Pedro Martinez, I loved watching him throw, or Alfonso Soriano, I loved watching him hit on the Yankees. And so I'd say, like, those two teams playing against each other was uh, probably where I first loved the game.
It's still the best rivalry in sport. It's one of the, if not the best rivalry in sports. And
Yeah,
just see those guys, especially in that like 03, 04, when both those ALCS, they go to game 7, the Yankees win it in 03, Red Sox come back from 3-0 down to in 04. Like, it just, God, that's such a good era of baseball.
yeah, it was
It really
great.
is. And so to grow up watching those guys now, like, it, man, it's just incredible. Was there you mentioned Pedro, but was there a guy that you really tried to emulate as a kid, like, or kind of helped you, think about like, oh, I want to throw that slider. Obviously, your slider's really good, but was there somebody that kind of helped you realize like, I want to throw that pitch, I want to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think uh, growing up in that area, you had like Roger Clemens with his
Oh
fastball
yeah,
and splitter, and so obviously you wanted Roger Clemens fastball, and then you had like Mike Mussina with a knuckle curve, and Mariano with a cutter, and I think those guys, especially, they had such like legendary repertoires in their arsenal, and being able to watch that and see kind of their intensity as well. Like Roger Clemens was just crazy on the mound at some points, and I've always loved that, showing your passion on the field. Um and I'd always go in my front yard, and we had like a glass door, and it was reflective, so you'd always, like, you watch a game, and then you go outside and try to emulate their pitching windups and everything, and that kind of gives you a little basis of how to pitch.
right.
Um, and that's kind of where I started to really look into pitching mechanics, and then as a kid you can get lessons, and got lessons, and then it just kind of builds from there.
So looking into 20, kind of bringing it back to 2022 again, what are your, do you set goals for yourself going into the season of like, you write it down in your locker and like, I need to hit these benchmarks, or do you just kind of take the season as it goes and, just try and, the cliche of do your best every day or get 1% better or something like that?
Yeah. I think typically at the end of the season, I don't really look at my stats throughout the season. Maybe I'll check All-Star break or something, but I don't look at it on like a day-to-day basis too much. But at the end of the season, you kind of have to. You say, okay,
Right.
where was I? So I kind of look at that, and then before the season, okay, like, this is, it's hard to get basic numbers. Like, of course, I want 3,000 strikeouts in a season or something crazy like that. But uh, you know, I try to keep it realistic. Like, okay, I just maybe get one more strikeout, and
Yeah.
that seems very doable. Um, and but I think it's more of like, for me at least, it's a mental side thing. I try to do my biggest things, like first pitch strike. Like, that's my biggest uh, you know thing that I always have to work on ever since I was in the minor leagues, even till now, is get ahead. Just because it makes your job a lot easier. But um, typically, I'm not too much of a numbers guys. Where it's like, okay, I want my ER this, strikeouts that. It's more of like, okay, first pitch strikes, and just be as competitive and get better at something every day.
All right. So we'll take it away from the field just a little bit. What are you doing outside of the game? Because I know you could be baseball every day if you really wanted to, but what do you do to kind of keep yourself grounded and balanced?
Yeah. So typically, the season ended, but duck hunting is a great passion of mine. I love that. Um, and then I love fishing. It's harder here. We just moved to Kansas City from Arkansas. In Arkansas, you can pretty much fish all year long.
Right.
It's not as cold, but when it warms up, we got some ponds around our house that we can fish around, and trying to think what else. Those are probably the two biggest ones, and then I'll play like video games and stuff with friends and teammates, and that's kind of a good way to keep in touch
Yeah.
and everything.
Okay. So who's the best video? Like, what game do you guys playing and who's the best?
So right now we're playing Warzone,
Yeah.
Rebirth, Resurgence, and me, Josh Stalmont, and Cam Gallagher are
Okay.
pretty much like the three that we play with a lot. Um, and Stamont's pretty good.
Well,
He's solid.
well, and you also got that pitcher catcher relationship too. So
Yeah,
you got to
yeah,
keep building that off the mound.
yeah.
What's your favorite road trip that you guys
Ooh.
take? And when you get to that city, what's like the go-to thing that you have to do?
That's a great question. Um, I think I like Seattle's very cool. just because the city's a little different layout. It's very cool. Like, and the food's really good. You can get really good sushi. Like, I'm a big foodie too. I love to cook. I love to try different foods. So um, anywhere with good food, typically that's like my go-to. Chicago's really cool. Um, it's fun. Usually, my wife will come out to some of the road trips, and she'll go to a city that she hasn't been to, and we'll kind of walk around the town and check out some new restaurants and stuff. So uh, that's I can't think of one on the top of my head though.
Is there one you're looking forward to for this year? Because you guys are playing the NL West this year, I
Okay.
believe. So you get like San Diego, LA, Colorado.
Yeah,
Any of those kind of
I've heard great things about San Diego, just the city alone.
Mhm.
I've heard that the weather's awesome. Like,
It's incredible.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. I heard the stadium's really cool. So I think that's probably the one I'm looking forward to. The
Yeah,
most.
I got to go out to San Diego when I was a senior in college for something, and we got to do a tour of Petco. That stadium is amazing. We got to go up on the Western Metal Supply Company building and
really?
look down. We were like on the roof basically,
Yeah.
and yeah, you can see where Hunter Renfroe hit a ball up there, like. Or Tatis, I think Tatis even hit one further than that. But yeah, that's a really cool stadium and a really cool there because it's built around downtown. You get a really cool view of downtown from the batter's eye.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool spot.
Yeah, that was always cool when you ever go to a stadium and you saw some like legendary long home run there. And you're like, on TV it doesn't do it justice. Like, you can tell like, oh, that's a really far home run. But then when you see it in person, it's like, whoa, that's really far.
I've watched guys that, like, I remember I think the Angels played in Kansas City when Trout hit one to the part of the fountains that I've never seen before. I think Salvi hit one pretty close there too this year. So
Oh, yeah.
Soler would do it. All those guys, man. I got one last question here for you. If you had like your welcome to the big leagues moment, like what was that for you? That like, oh, this isn't the Texas League or whatever. Like I'm in the big leagues. Was it somebody you faced? Was it like looking out on a big league mound? What was that for you?
Yeah. So my major league debut was at Fenway, and there's a little bit of backstory. Like, I was kind of up and down on some double headers, and didn't get to throw. So I went to Toronto, came back down, went to Detroit like the next day, came back down, and then finally got called back up. And I think we played a series maybe against Houston, didn't throw. So it was a little frustrating, not being able to pitch, but still happy to be there. Like, you're like, okay, I'm in a big league locker room. I'm watching big league games. So that was really cool. But there's still that, like, okay, I want to throw at least one pitch in the big leagues just to say, I did it. So then finally we went to Fenway, and I think it was like raining, and my family was there, and I think we were losing by 5 or 6, and 7th inning, finally get the call, Barlow, you're in the game. So I'm warming up, and this is when Vance Wilson was our bullpen coach, and I'm getting ready to go out to pitch. The gates open, and Vance kind of pulls me back, and he says, "Hey, enjoy it. You'll never forget this for the rest of your life." And that just sends chills up my arms and spine, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay, here we go." So I sprint out, and then finally, in Fenway they play Sweet Caroline.
Yeah.
And so I'm warming up to that.
Oh, wow.
For my debut, and I'm just like, and after, like, I hear my wife was telling my mom's crying, everybody's crying, and just listening to that and listening to the fans sing along to that, even in the rain, it's still packed, and
of course,
that was a really, really cool moment.
Big league debut at Fenway while Sweet Caroline's playing. Like, I don't know if you can write a better script for a lot of big league players to have their debut there, man. That's awesome. Well, Scott, hey, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully you do get a call that you're heading down to Surprise tomorrow, because we need the baseball season to start here soon. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone watching. Appreciate it.
Thank you.